When Tim asked me to talk to you today, I said, yeah, well, that's all fine, but I don't know anything about the subject. And he said, well, then you know more about it than anybody else. So I'll take that as a start. And I also talked to a number of people about this subject in the industry, the food service industry, which I'll introduce in a second. And to a man and a woman, they all said, good luck, chum. So I'm on my own here. I think the first point to make about the food service industry, which covers everything from Wormwood Scrubs to the Ritz, is that that's what it actually does. There is no common theme. There are no common voices. There are some big noises, big themes, big associations, but none of them speak for the whole industry. And I think the issue is, that I'm going to address anyway, is not a policy issue, because the food service industry will not be able to come up with a policy, but it's much more to do with consumer and marketing related issues. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is do a very brief review of how I see the UK food service market interacting with Europe, and then some final thoughts on what Brexit might mean for some of those issues. So this is the industry as we define it. It covers a whole load of sectors which are in green and blue: restaurants, pubs, hotels, and also schools and prisons and hospitals. That whole industry serves food. It is supplied by a supply chain, relatively simple, wholesalers, cash and carries in the main, that are quite significant players, and then feeding into the industry are a whole load of food manufacturers and other manufacturers as well. Now, the thing about the food manufacturers that supply the industry is that the vast majority of them also supply the retail market. Food service is a bit of an add-on, a bit of an others category as far as they're concerned. So the industry as a whole, just to give you some numbers, it serves around about 8 billion meals a year. It has income from consumers of roughly 47 billion pounds a year. That's food and drink. And it buys food to the value of around about 10 to 12 billion pounds. So it's a big industry, but compared with the retail market, it's still relatively small. If we look at how this interacts with Europe, then one of the first things to note is that we've got customers. And customers, non-UK customers, who account for just under 5% of the total value of the market, so then it's not that big. They come from around the world. But Europe accounts for around about 60% of the total, with France, Germany, Italy, and Spain accounting for around about half. So the UK food service market is a contributor to the incoming tourism business. It supports that industry, because after all, if visitors to this country can't eat, then they're going to die, and that's not good publicity for the food service industry. So we get consumers coming in from overseas, but there are quite a lot of them, but they don't consume a lot of food in total. Another aspect is where does the food actually get its inspiration from? The map of the world's got a number of circles on it, and that shows where each, or the contribution that each country makes to the cuisines that are on our plate. So North America, the United States in particular, burgers and so on. But Italy is a very significant supplier of cuisine into this country. And down the left-hand side is a chart based on some work that we do twice a year that actually looks at where the dishes on the plate and where they come from. So Italy, France, the Mediterranean generally, and Greece account for quite a significant chunk of the different cuisines that we have. So Europe is an inspiration, if you like, for what appears on the plate. And that is things like pasta from Italy, coffee from Italy, or Colombia, or Seattle, or wherever you want it to come from, but Italy, pommes frites from France, and so many other dishes appear on our plate. The food service industry is a great collector of food types from around the world and feeding it to us consumers. And the food itself physically comes from, well, wherever it comes from. Danish bacon for the food service industry, quite a significant product. Nutella from Italy, another example. So we get our food for the food service industry from around the world. But the point that I made earlier is that the industry actually feeds off, or it sits very much closely alongside the retail market. So there's nothing special about where the food comes from for the food service industry. If we look at the companies that are active in the market, then there are European companies that have a major interest in the UK market. Sodexo and Elior, two large contract caterers, are probably the most significant. There are other companies as well, Vapiano from Germany, for instance, not a huge number. And then we have outgoing UK companies that are outgoing. So SSP, who feed you in train stations and airports, Compass, who feed you at work, Intercontinental Hotels, who put you up for the night, but they also actually serve an awful lot of food, breakfast in particular. Costa is an international business. Most of its non-UK business is not in Europe, it's actually in China, but Europe is still a significant country. And then we've got two other companies that are in the distribution space, Brakes and Bidvest, who export into Europe in the sense that they deliver, they offer their services in Sweden and France and Poland and Czech Republic and other countries as well. So there are a lot of companies that have relationships throughout Europe. And the people who put the food on our plate also from Europe, particularly from Southern Europe and from the newer countries that have entered the EU in the last 10 or so years. So we have a lot of our services in the industry, not only waiting staff, but managerial staff, kitchen staff, and so on, are from Europe. So that's the industry in a nutshell, and I just want to spend just a few minutes just looking at four factors that I think are going to be impacted in the event that we vote for Brexit. First of all, the economy. Whatever the economy does is going to affect the food service industry. If people don't have money in their pocket, they don't go out. Or if the government doesn't have money, it doesn't provide food in hospitals and schools. So the overall effect of Brexit on the economy is going to have an impact on the food service market. Good or bad, I don't know. As I said, this wasn't a policy issue. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know. But it's going to have, the food service industry is going to benefit or suffer in the same way that the whole economy does. Secondly, returning to our pig, clearly, if what Alan has said comes to pass, and I have no reason to doubt his words, then we're going to see some changes, I suspect, to the way that we buy food, from the cheese from France or the chilled potatoes from Holland. That's all up for debate and change. And these companies that I mentioned before are going to find that their whole working environment is different. The laws will be different, not necessarily relating to food, but the overall way that they work, what they're allowed to do, how they can import, export, employment, etc., will all be affected by Brexit. And I'll leave the final word to Jamie Oliver. And I think this is going to be the most significant thing. He said, if we don't have European immigrants, all my restaurants will close tomorrow. So if Brexit means a change in employment and the opportunity for European people to come and work over here, then the food service industry, which relies on immigrants from Europe, and I do mean rely, then we're going to have a problem. So that's really what I've suggest is the key issue that relates to Brexit. Thank you very much.